That's what I've got here, so we'll get started. Hi everyone, my name's Eric with BobCAD-CAM. I am the demo technician here. So I do some of the, or most of the demonstrations of the software program with BobCAD. So if there's any potential customers that want to view our product before buying, I can show them any sort of module that we have when it comes to milling that we're looking at today. If it comes to turning for a lathe, wire EDM machining, laser, plasma, water jet machining, we do all of that here in our software program. And I also am part of tech support. So if there's any tech support tickets that customers enter, if they have any problems, any questions with the software program, I, along with the other tech support members, will call the customers back and help out with that. I'm also starting with training as well. So we, as I said before, we also offer online training where you could book 1 or 2 hour sessions at a time. We can show you how to program here in BobCAD and go from designing all the way up to programming and sending the G-code to your machine. We offer online training. We also offer on-site. So if you're more of a hands-on learner, one of our training members can go to your facility, show you how to use BobCAD, and get the G-code for your machine at the facility there with all of your employees to be able to watch and learn. And we also offer in-house. We're in Tampa, Florida. So if your team would like to come here and learn the software program in sunny Florida, it's getting a little warm here in June, but it's always nice weather here. Nice vacation and a nice write-off to have a vacation here and also learn the software program at the same time. So we'll get started here. I'm gonna get to my 3D model that I've got here on the page here in BobCAD. And if you have any questions while we're going through learning the NC editor today, you can add that in the comments section. I can answer any questions that you guys have as we're moving through learning the NC editor. Now you can see there, I'll be going through a couple 3D models here that are already programmed, doing some drilling operations, doing some milling operations inside of this pocket. For the first one. The next one, we'll be looking at 3-axis milling as well. On this one, with a fixture that we can view in NC Editor as well. You can see the soft jaws, the vise here. We'll view all of that in our NC Editor as well to make sure that there's no collisions with any of the geometry in the assembly of our part file here in BobCAD. All right, so we'll get started here. You can see the 3-axis milling operations here, an advanced rough, and then an advanced roughing operation. Now this is the back plot in our standalone version of BobCAD V36. So we're not in the NC Editor program just yet. We are able to backplot the toolpath in BobCAD. So if I expand the feature here in the CAM tree that I've done, a 3-axis milling operation, I can right-click on this advanced rough operation and go to backplot, the 5th one down here. And then I can play through the tool following along the toolpath, the visual of the toolpath here in the part file. Now that's going to be the biggest difference that we'll see here in our backplot and our simulation in BobCAD versus the backplot and simulation in NC Editor. The backplot here that we're looking at in BobCAD will backplot the toolpath, just the visual of the toolpath. In the NC Editor, more specifically the NC Editor Pro, we'll be able to backplot and simulate the G-code. So in NC Editor, it will actually read through a G-code file. Each line of G-code it'll read, and it will plot the points of the G-code. So that's not what it's doing right now in BobCAD. It's just going off of the visuals of the toolpath here in green and following along. For example, if there was any sort of incorrect G-code over here on the right-hand side that I've already posted, it won't show that in our backplot or in our simulation of BobCAD. In the NC editor, it will actually read the G-code here that it's brought into NC editor, and if there's any incorrect G-code, maybe, and I'll even show you if I add a Z plunge down into the stock accidentally, it'll show you that in the backplot of NC editor, where it wouldn't show you that here in BobCAD. So that is our backplot in BobCAD. Our simulation in BobCAD is up at the top, Start Simulation. I like V36 where we can actually have the simulation in a separate window, so I could put this on a second monitor if I wanted to, and you can see I can actually make some adjustments here in BobCAD in the toolpath while I am simulating at the same time. So we can sort of multitask that way. Pretty convenient. So here's our simulation in BobCAD. It will show the stock. It can show a fixture here. And so in my other file that we're going to look at as well, we can see the Kurt Weiss in the simulation here. And again, here in this simulation, all it's doing is it's reflecting the simulation based on the visuals of the toolpath I've programmed. It has nothing to do with the G-code at the moment. So right now it's doing the 3-axis roughing and finishing, then doing the drilling operations. What I like here in our simulation is based on the feed rate. Up at the top in our simulation here, you can see the estimated cycle time. It says it will take about 7 minutes and 1 second to do all these operations based on the feed rate I've set for each operation. So I will close out of the simulation here, and we'll get into the NC editor now. So from here, I can go to the top and hit post. It will generate the G-code here on the right-hand side. I just sort of have it updated from there. And I can right-click here in this posting window, anywhere in this window, and I can I could save it as an NC file. So that's what this Save As option is. It will save as .nc for the file extension. We can change the file extension if we want to, and we can name it, put it onto a flash drive, send it over to the controller from there. So I'll cancel out of that. And then I can right click here in this window, in this posting window again, and go to the NC editor. Now you should see this window pop up. It'll say BobCAD-CAM NC editor, and then it'll open the NC editor program with your G-code on the left-hand side here. Now sometimes NC editor does not open for us. That's kind of common because one of the reasons is because if you download the demo version of BobCAD initially and you've never updated to the full version of BobCAD, it doesn't install the NC editor by default. Biggest reason for that is because we want to sort of compress the file size of the initial installer for you for the demo, so that, you know, if you're not using the greatest computer with the demo version, things like that, we want to be able to have everyone try out the demo version, so we don't have the NC editor by default. Now, I'll close out of NC editor for the moment. We can go to our support page, which is, let's see, move that over here. So under bobcadsupport.com, I'll go to the main page here, and you can see you can create a tech support ticket here on our main page. You can download the download an update here as well. But what I really like showing is when we go to tech support, the second option down is knowledge base. This is where you can type in a certain question and there's hundreds of articles that you can search for if there's any questions that you have with the software program. So normally I just type in NC editor here, and towards the bottom we'll see well, actually no, second one down, NC Editor not opening. It'll tell you, well, normally NC Editor wasn't installed with the software. If you downloaded the demo version originally, you can download the latest software update here. And there's also another option here that you can add the NC Editor to your registry, and you may have to install that file here as well. So those are the two main cases of if NC Editor doesn't open for you. So just in case you guys aren't able to follow along yet, go to the bobcatsupport.com and see if, just in case it's not opening there. Yes, David, thanks for the question. Will you be demonstrating NC Editor Standard or Pro? I'm going to start with the Standard here now, and then we'll get into the Pro functionality. So I'll open up NC Editor again here. So on the right-hand side of my page, I'll right-click, go to NC Editor. It'll open up the program again. And here is everything the NC Editor Standard will entail. You can see on the left-hand side, we have our G-code. We have everything's color-coded. So we have our comments here in green. Our XYZ moves are different colors. Our feed rates are highlighted here in blue. So it's very easy to find any G or M codes we're looking for. If we want to specify a certain G or M code we're looking for, we can go to the top here. Under the Edit tab, which is the second one over, we can cut, copy, paste any text here. We can find any G code. So if I wanted to look for an M00 command, I'll find the next one here, not found. So let's see if I have M01 in this program maybe. Yes, so we have an M01 at the end of the first 3-axis milling operation here. If I wanted to find all of the M01 commands and change them to M00 commands, for example, that's the next option over. I can find and replace any text here. Yeah, so instead of M01, I can find an M01 and replace it with M00. I can hit replace. And so that replaced the first one and went to the next one, or I can replace all here, and it will replace all of them and tell me how many have been replaced. 3 of them have been replaced here. Oops, reopen NC Editor there. So there's our find and replace, our go-to line. So if I wanted to go to a certain line number, let's say I wanted to go to line number 123, and click OK, it'll bring me back to line number 123 right here. And so in NC Editor, it is technically line number 123. Here it's N111, and that's sort of because we have a bunch of spaces, a bunch of comments that don't have line numbers in them, so they don't line up exactly because of the comments there, but it'll bring us right to where we're looking for in the NC Editor file there. That is go-to line. We can go to resequence line numbers. So if I've deleted, say for example, line N10 through N20 here, I wanted to delete all of those. You can see there's a break in the file here with N9 to N21. If I wanted to, maybe if your controller doesn't like that, it says, hey, there's a skip in the line numbers, you can go here and automatically resequence them from 9 to 21 to 9, then to 10, 11, 12, and so on. So there's our resequence line numbers. We have remove blank lines, so you can see the blank lines here between the comments and the line numbers. Then to the next comment, those spaces there will be removed if I select that. Remove spaces. So if we didn't want spaces between the line number and the G code here, or from each G code there's a space between them, it'll remove all of those spaces for us. Then our feed rate, if I go to a certain line that has a feed rate here, so here's a feed rate of 600, I can click on that line of G code, I can go to feed rate, and I can change the percentage here. maybe if I want to change that to 50% of what it was, oops, there we go. Change it to 50% and click OK. It'll change it to a feed rate of 300 there. Then our next one is spindle speed. If I go to a line that has a spindle speed, I can change the percentage of the spindle speed there. And then edit values. So I go back to that feed rate of 300 here, go to edit that value. I can change, I believe I have to go to F for feed rate. If I wanted, so there's an operator, if I wanted to add, subtract, multiply, or divide that number, maybe I wanted to add 10 to it, it'll go up to a feed rate of 310 there for the value editor. So some basic functions there to modify the G-code. If we go to File, these are all of our basic things to go to a new file, open, save the file now as a new G-code file. But yeah, and then from the File tab over to the Edit tab, and then over to the View tab, I can scroll up and then scroll up to the top of the program here. I can go to Collapse. It will collapse the G-code at each operation. So you can see at line number 14 or N05, that's where the first operation starts, and I can expand the G-code of all of them, or I can collapse that operation. And then it gets to the next operation here at N1322. I can expand that operation or collapse it. And then the next one is N2019. The next tool is N2021, and then N2023 for the drill and the ending of the G-code there. So that's our collapse and then expand to expand all of those out to see all the operations. Then we have the next and previous tool change. So if I go to the top here, I can go to the next tool change, sort of like a page up and page down, but you're paging down to the next tool change here. You can go to the next or the previous comment. So usually the comments are at each tool change. So it'll get to this first tool change, then it'll get to the next one here for the drilling operations after. And then compare. Compare is a really cool one. If I've modified this G-code a whole lot and then go to compare and open the original G-code file, I can compare the differences I've made to the G-code files. If there's a little bit different formatting, or if you're trying to modify a post-processor, you can compare the two G-code files and see what the differences are of the working G-code file on your machine and one here from BobCAD. Compare the two and see the differences so that you can easily modify the post-processor to the changes that you need here. So a lot of cool stuff we've gone over so far in the NC Editor Standard. The File, the Edit, and the View tabs, everything we've gone over so far is in the NC Editor Standard. I'm going to skip the Simulate tab for the moment because that's the NC Editor Pro. We can go over to Tools and we can start DNC Transfer. So if any of you guys have an older CNC machine that you use a cable from the computer to the machine, you can set the port number, the baud rate, parity level, data bit level, all those settings that are on the controller that you need to set here to have that handshake between the NC editor here and the controller. You can send G-code to the CNC machine. You can also receive G-code from the CNC machine, telling me it doesn't have any communication there. But we'll reopen NC Editor. So that's the Start DNC Transfer. I'll actually go back to that page here. So that's under Tools, Start DNC Transfer. That first tab are all of the basic settings here. Now, I also run into some customers that are using a cable from the computer to the machine still. Run into customers that still use a floppy disk too. But if you're using a cable here and you have all of the settings set up, the port number from the controller, the baud rate set up that's correct at the controller, and it's still not sending to the machine properly, you will have to go to one other location here on your computer to set these baud rate settings, port number, all that stuff. You will go to your start button down at the bottom of your computer here, and then type in device manager. Yes, we're going to our device manager from the control panel. And then we can see down towards the bottom, it should say something about, it'll either be, if it's a USB connection, you'll find the USB connection here, or you'll find where there should be one that has a parentheses and it'll say COM1 or COM2, depending on which COM port you're using. You can right click on it, go to properties, and then it will have those same settings. It'll ask for the baud rate at that page there, parity, data bits, stop bits, all of those settings will have to be the same here, will have to be the same in the device manager for that certain COM port, and both of those settings have to be the same settings as it is on the controller. So a lot of stuff that you have to set up if you're going to use it in the sense of that hardware of the RS-232 cable there. And that is it with the standard functionality of the NC editor. If you guys have any questions so far, please let me know. We'll get into seeing whether or not we do have the NC Editor Pro on our license. At any time, you can go to BobCAD. You can go to the top and go to File. You can go to Help. And down at the very bottom here, we have Show License Status. So you can click on that option, and it will tell you with a checkbox what is unlocked on your license of BobCAD. Now I've got the real deal here with the tech support license here. Got CAD, mill 3 all the way up to 5-axis milling, and down towards the bottom we have the editor. So this is NC editor, the editor standard, and then the editor pro license. With the checkbox for NC Editor Pro, it will have these other options unlocked for me here that I'll show you next. So again, we've got this part file, we've got the 3-axis milling and drilling operations, the G-code here in this posting window on the right-hand side. I'll right-click, go to NC Editor. It'll open up that page again. And we've got our G-code here. We can do everything that I went over so far with the NC Editor Standard, and the addition to the NC Editor Pro would be at the top, and we go to Simulate. We first hit Reset, so it'll start right at the beginning of the program here, and that is what this axis is for, this X, Y, and Z axis. I'm going to go to the top and go to my different views here. You can see at the middle of the page here at the top, we have the top view, and we have all of our other different views here. Maybe I'll go to an isometric view to look at it on an angle here. We have our verification, which will show the stock from BobCAD and the material removal. And we also have our backplot option. Very similar to BobCAD with the backplot there, where it'll show the tool and it will show the tool path. I'll change the run speed so it goes a little bit slower here next time. I'll hit reset, change the run speed to slow it down, and hit play. Here, let me reset it again. Might be going too slow now. Nothing yet. Let me close out and reopen it here. So I'll reopen NC Editor. And so that's the differences, the verification and the backplot. We'll start with the backplot here. Look at it, sort of an isometric view here. And so to control this axis here, it's a little different than in BobCAD. You're not clicking and holding the scroll wheel. You're clicking and holding the left mouse button to rotate it around. You can click and hold the right mouse button to pan around here, and then you can zoom in and zoom out with the scroll wheel. And so I'll go back to simulate. I'll hit reset, and without fooling with too many of the controls here, I'll change the run speed a little bit and then hit play. For some reason it's stopping right at that safety line. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe it doesn't like me changing the run speed. Let me delete that out. Okay. There we go. Got something going on now. All right. So here's the back plot with the tool path, the roughing, and a tool change, then the finish operation. Each of the tool paths are going to be different colors based on the tool changes there. And again, this is different. This is a different backplot in NC Editor than in BobCAD. The BobCAD backplot backplots the toolpath based on the visuals of the toolpath in BobCAD. In NC Editor, you can see on the left-hand side, it is reading the G-code line by line and backplotting the toolpath based on the G-code. So you could have an existing G-code file from another software program or from the machine. You could load it here into NC Editor by just opening it and opening the G-code file here. Maybe we'll try the let's try 5-axis premium demo, which is the next one we'll be looking at. I can just open up the G-code file here and then backplot it. There we go. So there's the toolpath of my next file there. So yeah, if I have an existing G-code file, I can load it in. I can see the toolpath. I could also see a verification based on the stock I have set up. Before I get any further, I'm going to show, I'm going to show options for the RS-232 communication, and then we'll get into setting up the stock in here, setting up all the options for the simulation here as well. There we go. This work? All right, so back to BobCAD. I'll open up the file again, go to NC Editor, and then at the top we'll take a look at, we'll just briefly touch over the RS-232 communication again. If I go to the top, go to Tools, Start DNC Transfer. I've also had customers, just sort of reminding me here, I've also had customers have certain settings that they want to default these options to. If I don't want 9600, I want 4800 all the time, for example. I can view the machine that we have here under Simulate, which normally by default is this ISO 3-axis mill. I would first close out of NC Editor, and I would go to File Explorer. Actually, this is a knowledge base article as well, so if you don't remember this file path, it's okay. You can go to BobCADsupport.com again, type in DNC settings, and there's a knowledge base article. for Set Default DNC Settings in NC Editor. So it'll tell you right here the file path to go to change the default settings here. So we'll go to that under File Explorer. We go to the C drive, go to Program Files on your computer there. These are going to be installed with the BobCAD program. So you go to C drive, Program Files, NC Editor V1, and then Controllers. You select your controller here. Mine is ISO 3-axis mill. So I'll right click and I'll open it with Notepad here. And then I will search for, I normally search for 9600 because that's the default setting there for the baud rate. And that is where I can change the number right here from 9600 to 4800. That would be the new default option there. I can also set the data bits, COM port, all of those settings right here within the text. Just change the number here to set those default settings. All right. And now we'll get back to the NC editor. We'll look at the backplot, look at the simulation, and look at how to change the stock in the simulation as well, where that's located on your computer. David, good question. BobCAD simulation doesn't use the actual G-code like NC editor does. No, the BobCAD simulation, if I go back to the simulation here, again, it doesn't read the G-code line by line because in this process of BobCAD, to explain this a little better, in this process with BobCAD, we are calculating the stock, we're calculating the machine setup here, we're calculating all of the settings in the 3-axis milling operation here, for example, and then going to our simulation of BobCAD. And what it's going to do is it's going to simulate the visual graphics of the toolpath here that we've created. We're doing all of that process before we're generating the G-code. So there's no reading of the G-code in our simulation. It's just doing the graphics of our toolpath here. So that's the biggest difference of the simulation in our BobCAD version here versus our NC editor, which will actually read the G-code line by line here under Simulate, under Backplot, and playing the backplot again here. And then we'll backplot the verification option, which will be our simulation in NC editor. So I'll hit reset. I'll hit verification, which will be our stock, which is imported from BobCAD, that rectangular stock that we have here. And then I can hit play. It will show the toolpath here along with it. If we want to see just the stock without the toolpath showing, we can hit backplot again to turn off the backplot, or to turn off the toolpath in there. It's just showing the verification, which is the tool running across, doing the roughing, finishing, and the drilling operations there. Now to show you the difference between the BobCAD simulation and the NC editor simulation, again, we can go to the G-code here and say, for example, if we are going across the stock here, if I click on a line of G-code here in NC editor, it will show the tool at that exact location in the line of G-code. I can go to the next one here. It's going down to Z.210, and then it's going to be at Z100 thou above the stock there. Say if I change that Z.1 to Z-1 here in the G-code, once I get to that line of code, it'll show that plunging here. I might have to reset it first, actually. But then I can go to that location, and it'll actually show the plunge move here. So if I'm here, here, and then Z negative 1. So that's only Z negative 1. Say if I did something crazy here, like Z negative 5, hit reset, hit play, it will show that plunge there. Oops, I hit reset again. So it'll show that plunge, and I can go back to it. It'll actually give me an error here. A collision, if you can see down right here at the bottom, this text here down at the bottom, a collision happened of type arbor crash and holder crash when applying that depth there, going straight down into the stock. And I can go back to that line of code to see where it is. So again, we're at Z1, we're at Z.2, and then we're at Z negative 5, which is going straight down through the stock, through the table, and causing a collision. This is what you'll be able to see in the NC Editor Pro that BobCAD doesn't have. Our CAD-CAM software program doesn't show the G code being backplotted like this. So that's the difference between our simulation in BobCAD versus the simulation in our NC Editor Pro. We'll actually read the G code. We'll read this Z negative 5 move plunging down into the stock and into the table, and it's an additional verification to make sure that the G code is being produced properly. Maybe there's something in the post processor that's causing the Z negative 5. We want to make sure that this doesn't happen before we run it on the machine. So this NC Editor Pro is a great option to have to make sure that everything in the G code itself is running properly. So yeah, please let me know if you guys have any questions with that. We'll move on to setting up the stock where that is located. How is it being imported from BobCAD into the NC Editor? So in BobCAD, our stock here in this file, if I blank out the workpiece model, this rectangular piece of stock is being exported from BobCAD and imported into NC Editor Pro from the G code. So I'll hit post up at the top here, and we'll see under right below where I am talking here, number 7 right here, if you can see that. Yep, so you can see that right below me, right there. Line number 7, the comment job setup, and then in brackets 3-axis mill demo .mwjs. That is the job setup for the NC Editor. And actually I can make this G code a little bit bigger with another basic Windows function. If I hold Control and use the scroll wheel, I can make this G code a little bit larger here for you to see. So yeah, this is on this number 7 here, this comment here, job setup, and then in brackets 3-axis mill demo, which is my BobCAD part file here, 3x mill demo .mwjs. And that file extension, MW, stands for Module Works. This is the company we work with to create our NC Editor, and then JS stands for Job Setup. So this 3x mill demo .mwjs file is found in your File Explorer. I'll get back to it here. And this is all being recorded, so if you have any questions, any issues with trying to find the file path for any of these default settings for NC Editor, or trying to find the stock file here in your File Explorer, this is all being recorded. You can go back to this video after the fact here, after the live recording. But this is under the C drive of your computer. It's under BobCAD-CAM data. It's under the version that you're working with. We're working with BobCAD-CAM v36. It's under the folder NC and under the subfolder mill. And this will be, you can see the 3-axis mill demo .mwjs. So that's where this file is located. It's going to be exported from this location or referenced from this location into the NC Editor to bring in that stock model. So I'll go back to what we were working with here. Okay, so with this here, it brings in the stock model. And so if you modify the stock, it will update NC Editor. So we'll transition to our next part file here, where I have a cylindrical piece of stock here. Just this cylindrical piece of stock around the workpiece here. Yeah, no problem, Eric. Thank you for viewing the webinar here, and glad you're able to view most of what we're going with today. Frank, your question, is NC Editor Pro an add-on or is it included with Mill Pro? That's a good question. That would be a question for your account manager if they included that in with the 3-axis Mill Pro. Sometimes it is bundled in, sometimes it's not, so good to get them on the phone and see what they offered you, and if there's a difference in price for the NC Editor Pro, you can check to see if you have the NC Editor Pro on your license, again by going to your V36 program, going to File, and then going to Help and Show License Status. It'll tell you down at the bottom here if your NC Editor Pro has the checkbox here, then you have the NC Editor Pro. If not, you may have to speak with your account manager, see if it was included, see if you need to pay the difference or something like that. And so with this one, you can see the cylindrical piece of stock. Once I post the G-code and load it in NC Editor, it will be that cylindrical piece of stock here. And we'll see the stock being updated after the fact here. So we'll zoom into the NC Editor, go to Simulate, go to Verification, and this is our cylindrical piece of stock from BobCAD that we can load up and run the milling operations of this next 3-axis mill demo here. Roughing, then the finishing, and all those other finishing operations there. And so I'll hit pause and close out of NC Editor. To modify the stock, to bring in the fixture here, I have to go back to the stock wizard here on the left-hand side. And instead of the cylindrical piece of stock, I'll add all of the components to the fixture here as well to my stock definition. So I'll go here to solid model. I'll add the other solids here with it. Hit calculate stock, hit OK. Then once I hit post, it will update that MW, that module works job setup file, so that now everything is set up with the new stock model in that file. If I go to NC Editor, you'll see the whole setup of the fixture here, of the Kurt Vise, the soft jaws, and everything in our NC Editor. There we go. So this is great. So again, if we have that Z-5 and it goes down into the Kurt Vise here, you'd be able to see that and be able to check that here in our NC Editor. So yeah, David, good question. If you had inadvertently programmed that Z-5 in BobCAD, wouldn't the simulator show the same crash? Yes. Yes and no. Let's try to get our distinguish the difference between the Z-5 you're talking about and the Z-5 I'm talking about here in the G-code. So if I minimize NC Editor for the moment, and if I have here in the programming in the CAM tree, say I have the geometry incorrectly, if I had, maybe I'm roughing out down to a lower location than my geometry, maybe I've had, instead of this, for some reason I have a rectangular plane going down to that location. Let's say just down to here, or circular plane here. Perfect. Say if for whatever reason my geometry was incorrect, I selected this surface to go down to in the roughing rather than my workpiece model. Then yes, you would see that in the toolpath, and you would see that in the BobCAD simulation. Let's say, for example, so if I selected that as my geometry instead, it's not picking up that plane, but you get the idea there. If it was included, if that was selected as my geometry and went down to that location, then in the toolpath, yes, it will go down to that location and will be shown in simulation. Now, say if, for example, I don't have it programmed in the milling operations here, I had it programmed in my retract or my home position at the end of the file, for example. Let's get into the post processor and into modifying the G-code that way. Let's say I open my BC3X mill, my BobCAD 3-axis post processor. Go here to find that BC3X mill, open that up in Notepad, and then here we have our file header. Let's do it at the end here. So down towards we have tool change, we have null tool change, and here under block 5 we have end of file. So if I accidentally, or for whatever reason, in the G-code formatting, if it's not correct for whatever reason, let's say I hard-coded that Z-5 right here in the post processor. This is sort of to debug the post processor here. So when I'm posting the G-code, and from the post processor, not from my operations here that I programmed in BobCAD, all of the tool path. Sorry, I got to get my terms right. If all of the tool path is programmed correctly, there's no moves down below this location in the tool path of BobCAD. BobCAD is going to simulate everything perfect. It's not going to read all of the G-code, how it was formatted from the post processor. And that change that I made in the post processor that includes this Z-5 here at the end of the file, I have to go into NC Editor to view that Z-5 in the simulation here. It would not show in the BobCAD simulation because, again, it's not reading the G-code. It's only reading the toolpath I created here in BobCAD. So we go to NC Editor. We may think everything's just fine based on the simulation in BobCAD, but then we run through the simulation in NC Editor, which will read all of the G-code, will read all of the G-code from the post processor. And since I added that Z-5 in the post processor, it will read that and show it here in our NC Editor. So this may be a little more advanced than average BobCAD user here, but if you do get into the modifying of the post processor and do some changing, and for whatever reason you've accidentally put in that Z-5, or it's a different formatting from one machine to another and it reads it differently, it will read the G-code here and it will read that Z-5 and will show you that plunge move that it would not show you in the BobCAD simulator. So let me know, David, if you have any questions on that. Hopefully I explained that well enough, but if you have any questions with it still, let me know. If you still have questions on the differences between the BobCAD simulation and the NC editor simulation that shows this beautiful Z-5 move down into the stock right here on the last move right there of the trailer of the G-code file there. And again, it has that error code at the bottom here. A collision happened between arbor crash and holder crash and rapid edge crash when applying this rapid move at this line of G-code, which is right here, and I can highlight it, and I can actually sort of go line by line here. We're starting at the end of the program here of Z-3. It's moving back up to finish the program here, Z-2.926. Gets above the stock here of Z.2. That's our rapid plane right there. Let's look at it from the side here. So we are 200 thou above the stock. We think we're doing all right here from this location right here. If I scroll down to Z-5, oops, we plunged down at the end of the program there accidentally in the G-code. And again, this is only going to show in the NC Editor Pro. It won't show in the BobCAD simulation because this is only shown in the G-code, not in anything in the toolpath that we see in BobCAD. So with that modification of my post processor, it will backplot it correctly here in the NC Editor, or I shouldn't say correctly. I'm trying to watch my words here to distinguish the difference between the BobCAD simulation and the NC Editor simulation here. It will show the G-code. It will show all of the G-code where the BobCAD simulation does not show the G-code. It does not read the G-code here line by line and backplot everything. It will only show based on the operations you've programmed. Then you'll post the G-code, and if there's anything in that post processor that may be formatting the G-code incorrectly, it will show in the NC Editor Pro here. You can also change all of the parameters of all of the components here in the NC Editor of your simulation by going to the top here. I am in the way of that, so I gotta move myself over here. There we go. So on the top right hand side, you can see the this last icon here for job setup. It will show us options to set the components of the tools. If we want to change the geometry of the tools here in our NC Editor simulation, we can change that here. We can change the geometry of the arbors and of the tool holders here. It comes in from the It comes in from the geometry in BobCAD, so you don't necessarily have to worry about it. But if you want to change the geometry, you can also import a file as an IGES file here to change the geometry here. And you can also change the stock here as well. So you can see that file name that we went over here, that MWJS file right here that was imported from BobCAD. If I want to change it, I can search for an STL file on my computer to change that stock file as well here. So just sort of as an example with that, I can show you that here by going to my original file. Going through the milling operations, this is something, let's see, I'll make sure we got everything done here. And then we could also maybe run a test if you wanted to follow along with the NC Editor Pro functionality. We went through posting, opening, modifying the G code, simulate and backplot. We went through defining the stock, defining the tools, holders, arbors. And so yeah, we can modify the stock here, again, by going to our stock wizard, selecting a rectangular cylindrical piece of stock, selecting a solid model. We can also do it based on the simulation of BobCAD. This is a really cool option here. So if we go to Start Simulation, we can run the first roughing operation here. So we've got this stock that we want to start off with. Maybe for whatever reason at the machine we had to hit stop after the first roughing, and this is all we have left of the stock to run from here. At the bottom left of these tabs here in simulation, we have this tab Cut Sim down at the bottom. And then we have this Save Stock button here, this floppy disk button I can click on. And I can name it whatever I want to name it here and save the stock STL here. Then we can go to our NC Editor again. I'll close it and reopen NC Editor here. But we'll reopen NC Editor and we will go to Simulate, go to Job Setup over on the right-hand side here. And then we can change the stock to the STL file here by going to Browse. That is under my downloads, I believe, that I saved it under. Yep, so that's my stock.stl file, and you can see the new stock setup here. So I can define whatever STL file I want as my original stock here in NC Editor and run it from there. I can save the changes. I can go to verification, and that is, I think I have to hit reset, and then it'll reset the stock for me there to how I updated it. And it'll run from there. So this is the roughing. It's going to pretty much do a lot of air cutting because that's what the first roughing operation was for. And then it'll do the finish operation and drilling operations from there. All right, if you guys wanted to follow along, we'll do a basic roughing, a basic profile pass and view it in NC Editor to see from square one how to program and then view the NC Editor. So we'll go to a new file. I'm just going to do a basic circle that I'm going to profile around. Just going to leave it at the default setting, diameter of 4 inches here, and profile around a square piece of stock with this circle here. I'll go to the top and go to CAM. We'll start a new job. It'll be a milling job type, and I'll go with a Haas 3-axis mill for my machine. Go to Stock Wizard, where I can define my workpiece if I have a finished 3D model. My next page, I can define the stock that I'm starting with. We'll just do 4x4. We'll just cut off the corners here, and our stock will be 1 inch for the thickness. In our last page, we can set up the machine setup. If I want to define the G54 work offset at a different location, I'd highlight Origin, click on the bottom left corner for my G54 location. Click OK, right-click on Machine Setup 1, go to Mill 2 Axis, and I'll just do a profile rough and a profile finish to view in NC Editor. I'll select my geometry by selecting the circle and clicking OK. can type in my total depth of 1 inch here, going down to the bottom of the stock there. Hopefully I've got a little bit left over to hold on to for the profile operations. We've got a profile rough and a profile finish here. And I'll skip down to my tool page. I'm using a 1/2 inch cutter. I have my compensation on the left or the right side of the path, giving my climb mill or conventional milling options. Side allowance will leave 1/15 thou for the finish pass to clean up. We have our leads and all of these settings for the profile roughing. I'll set up my finish tool of a 1/4 inch here for my finish pass here. My compensation options here again, left or right side of the path, and then we have our lead in, lead out, corner types, all of those settings here. We'll hit compute. We can see the rough pass and the finish pass on the outside of the circle. We can simulate it in our NC editor by going to the top and posting the G-code, right-clicking on the posting window here on the right-hand side, and opening the G-code into our NC editor. It will bring in the stock based on the orientation of our G54 location right on the bottom left corner of the stock here as my G54 work offset location. And then it will run the 2 profile passes around the rectangular piece of stock by reading the G-code line by line. Based on the feed rate I have set in BobCAD, I can go to Tools and go to Toolpath Statistics. So that's the other option other than our Start DNC Transfer here in Tools under NC Editor. It'll give me a tool list, tool number 1, and the time it took for tool number 1, 2 minutes, 27 seconds. Tool list of the second one, and 2 minutes and 19 seconds there. I can export this as a text file. We also have options in BobCAD for that. If I right-click on the milling job in the CAM tree, I can go to Generate Setup Sheet. So we have a mill tool list, just a simple tool list here, which will basically a text file showing the tool list here for each operation. And then we've got a little more, other than the simple mill tool list, it has other tool lists and setup sheets here, all the way up to the full setup sheet, which will show the piece of stock that we're starting with here. It'll give me the total cycle time at the top, the number of tools, number of operations, the cutting distance, total distance of the tool travel there. It'll give me a tool list and an operation list with the cycle time for each operation here. So this is a great setup sheet to sort of end on and show you that you can print this out and send to the machinist, the operator for this milling job, and be able to see the spindle speed if he needs to set the spindle RPM here, the cutting feed rate, and the tool list for each operation here as well. So yeah, that's a lot of great information, a lot of great options that you can set up here in the NC editor to be able to view the G-code, and you can let NC editor read the G-code line by line and make sure that there are no incorrect G-code or M-codes in the program that could cause any sort of issues there at the controller. It's a great option if your controller doesn't have the graphics on the controller to show you the backplotting or the verification on the controller. This is a great option for you to be able to view the G-code line by line. If you have any existing G-code files from the machine, maybe you're not sure exactly what the programs are to be done for the milling jobs on the machine, you can import it into NC Editor here and be able to backplot them and see what these programs are for. And you can also modify them, view the G-code changes, and once you're done with them, you can go to the top and save this as another NC file and send it over to the machine from there. Please let me know if you guys have any questions. That is the end of our webinar for today, our NC Editor. Our webinars are every other Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. So we had one today, June 5th. Our next one is June 19th. Same time, same channel. We have a tentative option, a tentative idea of what we're going to be going through with the webinars for each one, but we normally send a survey out. If you could type in on the survey or fill that out to let us know what the next webinar, what you would like to see. That way we can tailor these webinars to exactly what you'd like to see. We've got a whole lot of different modules in BobCAD, so if we can get a great idea of what you'd like to see in these webinars, we'd like to know your feedback. If you learn enough in the webinars here to show you the right modules that you want to see here in BobCAD. So thank you for viewing the webinar today, and please fill out the survey to let us know what you'd like to see in our next webinar, which will be June 19th at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. And thank you for viewing this again. Yeah, good question, David. So basically the major difference between the NC Editor Standard and the NC Editor Pro is the Pro is able to show you the simulation and the backplot in the NC Editor. Everything else you're able to do with the modifying of the G-code and sending the G-code with the RS-232 cable in the Standard. That's all included there. So yeah, thank you guys for viewing the NC Editor Pro webinar today, and we'll see you June 19th, and to be determined on the next module we'll be viewing. Let us know in the survey what you'd like to see next time, June 19th, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and we'll see you then. Thank you very much. Have a great day.